are. And so I'm kind of taking that away from this morning session. I'm actually very excited to share this opportunity with Pastor Brad Haves. And Pastor Brad Haves is the founder and executive director of Fresh Hope Mental Health. And will be sharing with me in just a moment here. This particular session, there will be some CEUs that will be available. There's going to be a link that's going to follow up during this session, and we'll definitely give you some more instructions on how to obtain again and how to move forward with those CEUs. At this point, Pastor Brad, are you with us?
I am, and I'm so glad to be here today. Thank you, Emmanuel. Yeah. Well, welcome, everybody. I'm so glad to be here with you today. I got to say, this is the easiest time I've ever gone to San Antonio. And I have no humidity today. So it's nice here. I'm in Nebraska. I'm in Omaha. And I'm really glad to have all of you here. I can't see your bright and smiling faces, but I know that you're there. And so I'm glad about that. This is my fourth year with this conference. I was a keynote speaker 4 years ago, and then I've been leading workshops each year since. And so when I was asked to come back again this year, I said, oh, absolutely, yes. And so normally walking from the hotel to the Tobin Center, I have to have a change of shirts, but today I didn't have to change my shirt. So I'm glad to be here. First of all, just a little bit about myself. I've for those of you who have attended my workshops before, bear with me. I'll make this as short and sweet as possible. And for those of you who have never attended, you'll want to know a little bit about me, I would think. I'm a pastor, and I've been a pastor for 35 years. And in the last year and a half or so, I've gone full-time with a ministry that we started 10 years ago called Fresh Hope for Mental Health. Now, I am a peer with lived experience. I have bipolar disorder, and I was diagnosed in 1995. I was pastoring the 13th fastest growing Protestant church in North America at the time. And then what happened was I had a manic episode that became public and was terribly embarrassing. And what happened after that was I was forced to resign from the church and all kinds of things. And this group of people came behind me and they loved me. And they started a church and asked me to be their pastor of all things, and gave me an 18% pay raise and told me that my job was simply to get better at first. And then if I didn't want to serve them after that, fine, they understood and they would have served their purpose. Or if I wanted to serve them, that's really what they wanted to do. And so anyway, in 95, that all took place. Then in 2002, I relapsed due to some mix-up on my medicines. I messed it up, and then it got really messed up, and I ended up in the hospital again, relapsing. And I thought, okay, I'm going to figure out how to live well in spite of this bipolar disorder. My dad had it, but his was nothing like mine. He had bipolar type 2, more depression. I had more the manic, so I had bipolar type 1. And what happened was I started attending support groups after I had relapsed and was in the hospital. And I have to say, I attended two different types of the national organizations, and I didn't do so well at those. I found them to be very, people were just there rehearsing over and over and over how hopeless they were and how difficult their situations were. It was actually making me worse. So I stopped going. But then I decided after doing that, and I said, there's no hope. I need my faith to be part of this process, and I want to be able to talk about it without triggering other people in the group. I needed the freedom to do that. So I stopped going, and then I complained about it for several years to my doctor, and finally he said, why don't you start the group you want to attend, and I'll help you if you need help. And we did. And that was about 11 years ago, not 10, but 11 years ago. And so we had our first Fresh Hope for Mental Health support group meeting. And we created tenets or principles of recovery that are read at the beginning of each meeting, et cetera, et cetera. Well, there were a whole bunch of people looking for Christian mental health resources. And now we have over 80 groups and growing constantly. Everything's in Spanish today also. And we have online groups as well as local groups and all kinds of things. So what happened was the birth of Fresh Hope. I want to tell you this right away, straight up today. If you email me at Pastor Brad at freshhope.us, I will get you any information that you want from this workshop. If you want a list of our resources, or if you want some of the things I talk about, or if you want the PowerPoint presentation, just email me at Pastor Brad at freshhope.us. And just so that you know, our website address is www, of course, freshhope.us, freshhope.us. I probably don't need to tell many of you this, but there is a serious gap between someone receiving medical treatment for a mental illness and then the person learning how to live well in spite of that mental illness. It's a critical gap. You know it, I know it, especially if we have learned experience or lived experience, or if you're love someone who has a mental health issue, you know that this critical gap exists. So Fresh Hope becomes the bridge, the guide from the point of diagnosis to living well. And we are all peer driven. This organization is not run by anybody other than peers. Most of our staff are all peers. And our materials are written from a peer perspective, and everything that we do. Now, in our support groups, we both have the loved ones, those who love us, as well as the peers. And we do break out into discussion groups, but our groups are run different in that sense. And the peer support, everything that we provide, is based upon proven clinical research, which, bottom line is best practices, and it builds a bridge to hope. And we do this through support groups, hope coaching, peer-developed resources through a learning community. So we do those three things, as well as we also help equip faith leaders and churches in establishing effective, hope-filled mental health ministries. In fact, we have a group of people on Facebook and a page called Pastors for Mental Health. And we encourage pastors to be mentally healthy, but also we see to it that we talk about what they could be doing in their churches. Even we have 4 different webinars that pastors can attend on how to preach about mental illness, what mental illness is, and all of those kinds of things. So what I want to really talk about today, if you've been to any of my presentations in the past, you've heard me talk about a book that I dearly love. It's called Making Hope Happen by Dr. Shane Lopez, as well as I've talked about the research done on hope. But this last year, I really did a lot of homework since the last time I was with everybody in San Antonio. reading all the 25 years of clinical research that's been done on hope. And some parts were pretty boring, let me tell you, reading through the clinical research and what they found and how they measured it and all those kinds of things. But based upon this, we've really put together a very, very simple model or process for bringing people from a point of hopelessness to hope so that they might live well in spite of their mental health diagnosis. And this is what the model looks like. And if you look at it, you're going to say, well, that's pretty simple. It is, but some of the most profound things sometimes are the simplest, because all the research that these doctors have done over these 25 years, all that research points to several very key things. And that is, when people become hopeless, it's because they don't see a way forward. They just don't know how they're going to, and they see no choices that they get to make in that moving forward. And the same, then what happens with hope is that people begin to see a way forward. And we'll come back to this in a little bit, but we've put this down into a very, very simple module or model, if you will, a process to bring people from feeling hopeless to feeling hope or having hope. So if you know anything about the Christian church, you know that we're pretty good at sometimes kind of hitting people over the head with hope and faith and just believe and pray more and do this and do that. And it can really be a problem. And I'm going to tell you that one of the things that we've discovered is that there is an incredible amount of spiritual bypassing that happens. And what I'm talking about there is that people, meaning well, Christians many times will talk to somebody who's feeling hopeless or who has a mental illness, and they just start, Bible passages and hope and just pumping them up that way, when in fact what they're doing is they're telling them the hopelessness that you feel, your feelings, your deepest points of pain, I want you to just ignore them, and I want to kind of sugarcoat it with faith. I want to just kind of bypass all the pain, and you don't need to process it. Don't think about that. In fact, think about this instead. And so one of the things that we've really started doing in this last year is really talking to people about the fact that if you don't deal with your pain will deal with you. After all, God made us to have feelings. And the Bible is full of people and passages where people were dealing with their feelings. The book of Psalms is full of psalms where the psalmists are really crying out to God. They're really crying out and lamenting to the Lord. And as well as there's the whole issue of people expressing their pain and their difficulties. The Bible is not without that. So I don't know why we Christians in today's world think, pump people up with scripture passages. But people have to deal with their pain. They have to process it. So you can't bring somebody from hopelessness to hope without them being able to express their hopelessness and the pain from that hopelessness. That is a key thing. And if you're telling people to bypass that or skip over that, you're going to end up really turning them off. It makes it toxic. It's not good for them. It's not healthy. It's comparable to having a terrible wound that has to be stitched shut. And you stitch it shut, but you don't clean it out. You don't get rid of anything in there. One of the things that was very difficult years ago was both of my nephews were in a bus crash, and the one that was the least wounded from the crash, he ended up injured. Ended up in the intensive care, and I went into the room, and he had a huge gash in his head, and they were sucking or vacuuming out the glass from his head, lifting the skin, and I could not stand it. And they explained to us, well, they don't want any glass underneath there after it's healed. Well, the same way with pain. It has to be dealt with. Too often, people get stuck in their pain, though, also. They don't move forward in their pain. And when you get stuck in your pain and you just keep rehearsing it over and over and over, it actually makes you sicker. So one of the things we have found is that we have to be able to encourage people to express and to process their pain. That will help them move to a point of hope. Now, the other thing that we do, and you find this not just with Christians, but with heavens knows anybody that approaches people and they want them to move from hope to hopelessness, or from hopelessness to hope, they will do what I call toxic positivity, where you can do this. You can do this. So I want to have a little fun with all of you. I have no idea how many of you there are. And so, Emmanuel, this is where I'm going to need your help at reading their responses. Does everybody see their little chat box where you can type something in there? I think it's to the right, correct?
All right, Pastor Brett, thank you for leading us into this quick little Q&A. So if everyone would take a look at their chat session, everyone's participating quite well. So I'll go ahead and read these across. And if you would just go ahead and just add number 1, Y for yes, or number 1, N for no, then we'll go ahead and share that with Pastor Brad, and then we'll go from there. All right, number 1, God will never give you more than you can ever handle. Is that a yes or no? And I'll pause for a moment there as I start seeing some responses.
And let me just say this. What we're trying to figure out is the yes is yes, this is good positivity, or no, this is toxic positivity to say to somebody who's hopeless. Okay? That's why we're doing it.
Thank you, Pastor, for reinstating that. Good. All right. Number 2, this is hard, but you've done hard things before, and I believe in you. Is that yes or is that no? So go ahead and type in 2 Y or 2 N for no.
By the way, Emmanuel, we could do this we can go back to number 1. And if you want to kind of tell me what the crowd's response was.
Okay. Fantastic.
And we just do them one at a time.
Got it. Okay. So let me just go real quickly up to number 1. We have at least 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. It looks like the majority of number 1 and number 2 are all yeses. We have a few no's for 2, but most of our 1s and 2 are answering with a Y for yes.
Wonderful. I need to break in really quickly for those who are doing the CEU credits. I finally got that code. It is code 26. That is code 26. We'll repeat it at the end of the poll, and then I will give you the closing CEU at the end. Thank you so much.
Okay.
And I'm sorry, one more thing. Please, 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 in the very beginning, we are not sharing the codes on the chat sessions. So thank you, David, for being extremely helpful there. But the codes will only be shared verbally, both in the beginning and at the very end. Thank you so much.
All right.
All right. So, Brad, again, most were answered yes for both question 1 and 2.
All right. That's good to know. Number 1, God will never give you more than you can handle. Is that toxic positivity? Yes. Or, I mean, is that a good thing to say to somebody? Yes or no? Well, it's actually not a good thing to say. The truth is, there's some false beliefs out there that God will never give you more than you can handle. Listen, there are a lot of things that happen in life that you can't handle, except with God. So the strength doesn't come from within us. It comes because he helps us. So I could take you through scripture passages, et cetera, but just let me say this. Say, I know this is more than you can handle, or this feels like this is more than you can handle. Because the truth is that when somebody loses, let's say, a child in a car accident, it's more than any of us can handle. And it's only God that gets us through. The second one is, this is hard, but you've done hard things before, and I believe in you. Now, that's a really good thing to say to somebody. I've seen you do this before, and I believe it. I believe in you. All right, Emmanuel, you want
All right. Yep. So we'll kind of jump right back in here. We have a very passionate group, and they're just moving right along here. But
Okay.
I will give you just kind of a synopsis of what the majorities are. It looks like for number 3, you'll get over it. I got a few in there that has an N for no. So how would you explain that?
Yeah, I would say this is not a good thing to say to somebody. It's toxic. Because you're just telling them you'll get over it, and you're kind of short-circuiting them being able to talk about it, as well as the same thing with number 4. You just need to be positive. That one is the most blatant one of all of these 10. You just need to be positive. Well, that's really cutting people off at the pass. When I was going to get married, the week we were getting married, I got a haircut at my father-in-law's barber in Los Angeles. I was from a little tiny podunk town here in Nebraska, never, lived in a city like that. And the guy, this was in the 70s when you had hair past your ears, and he trimmed it like I was going into the Marines. And I was so upset. My father-in-law just kept telling me, oh, you're fine, you're fine. He just didn't let me feel. Well, when you say things like, you just need to be positive, you're really telling the person how you feel doesn't matter. I'm telling you how to feel. Number 5, go ahead.
Number 5, I know there's a lot that's going wrong in your situation. What might go right? And here, I think the majority we got was a Y for yes. It's a good thing.
Yep. This would be a good thing to say to somebody. This helps people look at potentially seeing a way forward. So you're really inviting them to look to their future with some hope. Because, see, hope really is the ability to see a way forward and to know that you have the potential to choose some things in that way forward.
Next one here is a really good one, at least if I've had to answer that, which I did. All feelings are welcome here. And I would say the majority said yes.
Yes. And that's absolutely true. And Christians, for those of us who are doing mental health in a Christian setting, folks, you got to let every feeling be there.
Good one. Good answer. Number 7 is it's probably pretty hard to be positive right now that I'm praying for you. That one's going to be a little tricky. Yes or no? Let me take a look here. We had, I would say the majority did say yes on that.
Okay. And I would agree. It's pretty hard to be positive right now, but please know that I'm praying for you.
Pastor Brad, would you say that that's kind of almost like acknowledging the tough spots where people are at? Then the response is, I'm praying for you, or I'm going to take some action towards that tough place.
Right. I think what you're really doing here in number 7 is you're really saying, I understand that you're not feeling positive. I wouldn't either, and that that tells the person how you're feeling matters.
That's good. I like that word affirms. Number 8, sometimes we feel like giving up. What is your ideal outcome? It's almost like a good open-ended question. And that one, I would say that the majority once again selected Y for yes.
Yep. And I would agree. Sometimes we do feel like giving up. And again, you're affirming the person's feelings. Now, see, one of the things that happens is feelings come because of how we look at things, right? Feelings come about because of how we perceive things. And sometimes what we perceive and what we think to be true are actually based on lies. And for instance, for those of us who are Christians, we know that no matter how horrible the situation is, Romans 8:28 still kicks in. We can do, or that God will take all things and make them work together for our good. And so what we are doing in this one is we're saying, I'm sure you feel like giving up. I can understand why. What is your ideal outcome? Again, you're inviting them to see past the situation and to begin to think differently about it. That's a very key concept.
That's a good one here. Now, number 9 says, it's never fun to feel like this. Is there something that you can do today that you'll enjoy?
Yeah, and actually, when I wrote this the first time, this has been edited for some training material. But when I wrote it the first time, I said, it's never fun to feel like this. Is there something we can do together today that you'd enjoy?
Versus you. So we want to switch that with we.
Yeah.
Good. And then number 10, it's probably hard to see any good in this situation. We'll see if we can talk about this or through this. And I would say, again, we have a lot of yeses in this quick survey.
Good. We've got a very smart group.
We do. We do.
That's good.
Good.
All
Pastor
right,
Brett,
now,
I'm sorry, Pastor Brett, I have a quick question.
Sure.
Would you say that the principles that you're the Christian principles that you're sharing, could these be transcended to other faith denominations?
Yes. Yeah. In fact, I've been part of a group out in Washington, D.C. that is that the Faith Initiative through HHS brought together. And there's people of all walks of faith. I mean, and I was sitting next to a woman who teaches in Michigan at one of the universities, is a psychiatrist and is a Muslim. And I said, do you think these principles of hope work the same way? And I believe, well, she said, absolutely. And so I believe that you will find people of every faith and spiritual leaders of every faith that could plug their scripture or their belief system into this and come out in much the same place.
Thank you.
You bet.
All right, gentlemen, I need to interrupt one more quick time. For those of you who are earning the CEU credits, I've just posted the link in the chat, and the code that you need to enter is 2626. That is 26. Thank you.
All right. Now, what I want to do is show you this model that I showed you initially, and I want to just kind of walk you through it. Based upon, we never, as Christians or as people of faith, want to have people bypass their emotions, bypass their pain. They have to feel them. And secondly, we want to help them process them. And but also we want to help them do what I call pivot to hope. So if you notice on the left, you have hopelessness. Now I'm going to tell you that after 35 years of counseling, pastoral counseling with people, as well as the last 11 years of working with my peers who have mental health issues, as well as my own recovery, as well as the principles that we hold to through the Fresh Hope model, I believe this to be true. Now, we've just created this in the last 3 months or so, although I've been doing it without ever writing it down or anything. And we just started to offer hope coaching, which I'll talk about later, which is all based upon this model. But I believe that the research that we will follow up with will prove this to be true. So if you have somebody who's feeling hopeless, and if you see me pointing, I'm just pointing at my own screen. It's rather bizarre to sit here, and I'm in my basement. My dog's in the kennel. My wife should be coming home anytime. I have shorts on and no shoes. This is a great way to lead a workshop. So you have hopelessness on the left side. And for whatever reason, this would be true for anybody, not just people with a mental health issue, not just for peers. But so you have hopelessness on the left. Something's happened, or a situation, or an ongoing thing, or compiled. And I really believe that sometimes you can have compound hopelessness. And so what happens is if that person can enter into a relationship with someone, could be a therapist, could be a counselor, could be a friend. There are those who would say that good talk therapy is really what you could get from your dearest of friends at times. But if you feel heard, that somebody understands your pain, they get it. And they are getting it in such a way that you can pour it out, and you won't need to rehearse it if you really feel heard. Then secondly, the next part of this is that then if the person that's working with you knows how to ask the right questions to help you process the pain, they can get you to a point that is a pivot point where you can begin to see a way forward. But people have to feel heard. They have to have begun to process the pain. And when you can see a potential way through the difficulty, you can begin to move forward. And then you have hope. And that hope will multiply, it will build. Now, I'm telling you, this is based on 25 years of research that the main doctor, Dr. Snyder, did some time ago now. And there's all kinds of interesting books I've read recently about even cancer patients, those who have hope versus those who feel hopeless in regards to their own diagnosis. So this pivot point becomes the point where somebody pivots. And we've heard a lot about pivoting lately with this pandemic. Organizations are having to pivot. We've all had to pivot how we do things. I'm going to start a support group for people who are Zoomed out. And it'll be a Zoom meeting, but it'll be a support group for people who feel Zoomed out. And everybody can say whatever they want. You don't have to try to look put together. Anyway, I want you to understand something that I think somehow we have lost the ability to perceive or understand a very significant truth that for those of us who are Christians, and I think for those of us who are people of faith, no matter what the faith is, there's a truthfulness about something between the vertical and the horizontal. The vertical would be the relationship that we have from a spiritual perspective with our Lord. Mm-hmm. And then there's what we experience in daily life. And sometimes those two things can be very opposite. They both are true, and we experience them both at the same time. And so I think people have to get used to being at the intersection of hopelessness and hope at the same time. In other words, I can say, for instance, I have a horrible situation right now, or I have this difficulty, or I have that difficulty, or my kid is going through this, and it's ripping out my heart. But I also have the hope that God's going to do something. They're going to grow spiritually. I'm going to grow spiritually. Do you see what I'm saying?
Mm-hmm.
In other words, both things are at play. What I would say, moving back to the model, is being able to see a way forward when you're at this intersection means that I can feel my hopelessness and at the same time be able to see a way forward. The research says if people can get to that point, they can have hope. It'll grow, it'll multiply, and they will become stronger and live well in spite of having, no matter what it is, any kind of situation, including a mental health diagnosis. So what we've done based upon that research is started as part of our organization and ministry is what we call hope coaching. And we're in the process of we've done all the piloting, and now we're just getting into where people can be trained as hope coaches, but also people can contact us and receive hope coaching, and or people can the churches, for instance, or houses or communities of faith could have us establish hope coaching in their community of faith. So there's a lot of ways that it can be used. Now, I'm going to tell you this. A hope coach is not a peer support specialist. A peer support specialist has much deeper training. They're going to be in a longer term relationship with somebody. Hope coaching is very simple, and it's kind of the emergency room work that, for instance, let's say somebody has that initial diagnosis or the bad thing just happened. And what this what a hope coach does is really helps the person deal with what's going on, process through it, and see a way forward to the next step. What is the next step? Well, maybe they need to go to a support group, or maybe if they just lost that child in a car accident, you've heard the pain, you've helped them begin to process it. What would be a next step, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. In other words, this is a very short-term relationship. What I have found through the years is when people can't get help right away, you can finally determine you want to get help and then go to make an appointment to see a therapist or a doctor, and you're 6 months out. Maybe you're only 3 months out. That's a long time to go without any help. It's a long time to go without. So this is part of that, the EMT on the site helping somebody. So our Hope Coach training that we offer it's intended for short-term relationships, meeting 2 to 5 times. And it's specifically, it doesn't have to be for somebody with a mental health issue, although that's what we specialize in, Fresh Hope. But it could be for anybody in any kind of situation when they feel stuck in the pain and they don't see a way forward. They're feeling hopeless. And so the Hope Coach is a listener, not a counselor, not a problem solver, a listener who's been trained to ask certain questions and just help the person by asking questions. So the Hope Coach helps them process their honest emotions of pain while offering the assurance of hope from a faith perspective that will overcome and work for their good. And then a Hope Coach brings the power of hope through listening and caring questions, brings hope through their compassionate presence, just being there, and helps people discover the way forward when they believed there was no way forward, when they had believed, and brings hope through the sharing of the parts of their own story. In other words, a Hope Coach might share parts of their own story. By the way, we've been doing Hope Coaching now for about 2 months online, where people can make appointments to have Hope Coaching. And obviously that would be available to any of you. You can find that on our website at freshhope.us. But also, you can become trained as a hope coach. Anybody can be trained. You don't have to have a diagnosis. Anybody that wants to help people, and this really is for any situation. But I believe that the power of this is the fact that this is a Christian model, or a faith-based model, I should say, because Emmanuel, you asked the question, and that sometimes I get stuck in just saying Christian, and when in fact I really mean faith-based model.
That's okay.
So forgive me for those of you who are not necessarily Christians. I'm a pastor. What can I say? I'm stuck. I'm old. 35 years of talking the same way. Anyway, this is a model that can be used. And what we're finding is that people are calling in and wanting hope coaching. And you know what? They pivot. When people are given the idea, when they're given the chance to be heard, knowing their pain is understood, and when they get that time to ask or are asked questions that will help them process their pain, without exception, both in Spanish and English, we have about 10 Spanish trained hope coaches. We have about 7 or 8 English speaking ones. And everybody's saying how much delight they're getting from helping people, because what happens is they see people pivot. This concept of being able to start to see a way forward. It's extremely important. Well, anyway, we do have a Fresh Hope for Mental Health book, which is available on Amazon, or you can order it from us. We also now have all of our materials are in Spanish, including our book. So not to be, the cover is exactly the same, except there's Spanish over here versus the English book. But so there is a Spanish book. This book is based on the 6 tenets, or the 6 principles of living well in spite of a mental health diagnosis. And those of you who are practitioners could use this book to give to others. If you're a pastor or a spiritual leader in your community, this is something you could have on your shelf to give to those who have a new have a diagnosis and want to learn and begin to live well in spite of it. We do have a new book that is almost done. In fact, I have it here with me. I can prove that it really is at the point of almost being done, because I didn't plan on showing this to you, but this is the book presently. And all those little tabs are places where I have to go back and either rewrite something or whatever. But this new book is by my wife and myself, and it's for the loved ones. It's for the people who love people who have a mental illness. And it too is based upon the 6 tenets of recovery. Actually, there's 7, because there's going to be a 7th one added about giving back. But holding to hope, I like the subtitle a lot. Staying sane while loving someone with a mental illness.
That's good.
Because our principles of recovery are for both the person who has a diagnosis and the people who love them. The first part is for the person with a diagnosis. The second part is for those who love them. And the third part is what we do together. So this book covers the loved ones part and what we do together. But I'm going to tell you, I have found in 11 years of doing this, we have 80 some support groups across the United States and about 260 facilitators. The thing I hear more than not is how when people love someone with a mental health challenge and that person's not doing well, the loved one doesn't do well either. And many times they develop depression and anxiety and it can even um, precipitate them becoming even having mental illness themselves. So anyway, this is a very powerful, we did it in a very powerful way. We modeled it after the way that the work is done in trauma healing that we do through the Trauma Healing Institute of the American Bible Society. So this should be out, I'm hoping by the end of the year. Pray. Or by right after the first of the year. And again, if you want to know anything, or you want to know about this book, or you want to just email me, Pastor Brad at freshhope.us, and tell me what it is that you're interested in or would like to know more about, and I will get back to you, I promise. So,
Pastor Brad?
You bet.
Hey, so sorry to interrupt here, but I think in the beginning of the conversation you said, hey, remind me when I'm about 10 minutes after the hour, 11 minutes. So we are at the 12:10, 12:12 right now.
Okay.
And we're going to go and open this session at this point for Q&As.
You bet.
But I do want to say that I absolutely love the choice of language that you've selected for your material here. Coach Hope. Man, there's a variety of things that I just wrote in here that really validates and assures individuals with mental health, and that model just really, really resonates quite well. So at this point, we're going to go ahead and open this up. Give me a quick second. My light seems to turn off automatically when there's no motion in the office.
Yeah.
So I'm going to go ahead and wave a little bit. I'm going to wave here a little bit. There we go.
We have to do that in our offices too.
All right, Terry, did you want to share something?
Sure. I have the end CEU credits. I believe that we're supposed to do that right before the Q&A. I may be mistaken. And I think we'll figure this out for next time, for the next session. I have code 33. That is 2 3s, double 3s, 33. And the link is to your right. All right, thank you.
It almost sounds like bingo, doesn't it? 33. Yeah. Who won bingo? So we're going to go and give everyone an opportunity. Just pause for a moment, think about maybe some of the notes, some of the slides that they probably captured. And we really want to encourage everyone to share openly. Pastor Brad is really passionate about the information that he's written based on his own personal experiences and the 40 years of him again working in this field. So I'll kind of keep an eye here, Pastor Brad, and as things kind of come through, we'll wave them, and in the between, if you want to share some additional information, feel free to do so.
Sure. In fact, I can't believe I actually had that timed pretty well because I was at the end. I'm glad.
All right. So who's going to be our first one? It would be nice if we actually had the audio portion turned on. But for safe sake at this point, the only way to ask those questions is going to be through chat. And once again, I want to redirect you over to the right-hand side.
I also have some questions here. Shall I start?
Oh, wonderful. Please go ahead.
All right. Let's see here. I have Amy Lisa Hook. She asks, how do we find information about Hope Coach training?
Good question.
Yes. And in fact, let me just mention that right now, Hope Coach training is available online. And so we certify our Hope coaches, and it's all done online, and there's ongoing support for our Hope coaches. And you just go to the front page of our website, scroll down just a little ways, and you'll see receive Hope coaching or get trained as a Hope coach. Click there, and it'll ask you to fill something out, and you can you'll get an email, and you'll know all about the training that's available. There will be a nominal fee for that only because of the cost involved for us. But we are going to be training all of our facilitators in this, everybody who we're going to hopefully train most of the people in our groups so they can help one another, and the group can offer or operate off of this model also. And if you're a peer support specialist, I would encourage you to take this training. This is that additional piece that could be there for you. It's all about learning some key questions to help people process their pain.
I do
All
want to
right.
add. I do want to add this. Pastor Brad actually is the #1 Christian podcast speaker out there. So if you want more information, you want to hear more of his speeches on particular topics, go out to podcast and put in Pastor Brad, and I'm sure you'll find it out there and you'll enjoy it. Next
Yeah.
question.
All right. The next question is, what is the website for the Hope Coach training? Is it pathways-to-hope.net?
No, you'll find it on freshhope.us.
Fresh Hope.
Yeah.
Freshhope.us.
So you want to go to
Thank you.
freshhope.us. It's one of our initiatives. It's one of the 3 things that Fresh Hope does.
Thank you, sir.
All right. I do have another question here from Jolene. I'm so glad you're doing this initiative. I just started a monthly gathering with people to talk about ways we can improve care within our faith communities. Connected Church Care. I'll start sharing about your resources with our group. I don't know if you're familiar, Pastor Brad, with that support group called Connected Church Care.
No, I'm not, and I probably should be, or I am, and I forgot that I know about it. I have a great memory. It's just really short.
Okay, great. Another question here from Lori. If you still have any questions about the participation, Lori, thank you so much for posting that out there. What is the website? We already got that one. I didn't realize we needed to do the survey mid-session. Do you need to submit both surveys to get credit? I think that's more a question for Nowcast and myself. There is a link that we've provided further up that you can definitely scroll and you can find more information about that. All right, any more questions?
All right, there are 2 more questions.
Right.
If you look, gentlemen, if you look below, it should say like ask a question, and that is where they are.
Beautiful, thank you.
Hopefully it popped up. So did you want to answer that or ask those questions then, Manuel?
Absolutely. So there's another question here. Good question. I think you've mentioned this, but it would be nice to reiterate it. Is this program curriculum free to faith-based churches or nonprofit organization? And is this program offered in San Antonio, or does your website indicate which cities your program is currently in?
Yeah, we have, if you're talking about our support groups, we have a support group in San Antonio, Fresh Hope support group, and several in Houston and other places in Texas. But they're throughout the United States. And most of our support groups right now are meeting online. But we have traditionally had online group meetings for people also. And, quite honestly, they work as well as the ones that are in person. In fact, sometimes I think people are more transparent online than they are with one another in person. So, yes. And we have groups for teens.
Oh,
We have one Spanish-speaking group for teens. Yeah. We have Spanish-speaking groups online. So
nice, very good.
Now, when it comes to the Hope Coach training and things like that, because it's all done online, this is just being introduced. So people in San Antonio, let's say there's a church that says, well, we'd like you guys to implement, to put this into our entire ministry. In other words, train Hope Coaches in just about every department of the ministry. That's what we hope to do. And so we can bring it to San Antonio, or we can bring it, but also people could get Hope Coaching online, or just individuals could just do the Hope Coaching saying, I just want to be able to do this with my friends when they're going through tough times.
Good, thank you. Next question here. Your presentation was great. Thumbs up, Pastor Brad. Because I have friends and relatives with bipolar disorder. May I ask if you yourself are you continuing on your medication?
First of all, this person should send me their address. I'll send them $20 for that positive feedback on the workshop. Am I taking medicine? Absolutely. I just like if I had cancer, I'd do the treatment. And just like if I had diabetes, I would take the insulin. I trust that God heals. I'm a full believing, you might say I'm a Pentecostal Lutheran, which is almost contradictory in terms. But I mean, but I also know that God heals through medicine. And I don't think there's any shame in it. And we encourage people, don't stop taking your medicine, but can people be over medicated? Yes. And initially when I started taking medicine some 25 years ago, sorry about that. I felt like I was a walking zombie for a while. But you know what? You get past it, you get on. And today, I don't feel right if I don't take my medicine. But, and my doctor has been very good about working with me on that.
Well, that's very refreshing to hear and encouraging. Another question. What do you think about the book? If you're familiar with it, The Body Keeps Score. Are you familiar with that book?
Yes. I'm going to tell you, trauma is at the heart, I believe, of many times what is the mitigating factor, or I'm not sure I'm saying that right, but it's the thing that triggers the mental health issue for people. Trauma, we do trauma healing. We offer trauma healing groups that are based upon 5 principles, scriptural principles of, for instance, helping people learn how to lament. It is part of our Hope Coach training also. But trauma and the body does keep score. And I love the doctor who wrote that. I listen to everything I can that he says. And quite honestly, he's good. But what we've seen through the trauma healing groups that we've had is that people can find relief. People can get to the point where they understand that trauma that happened is no longer happening to them, so that they can have hope and move forward.
Nice. Along that same line, are you familiar with the program called Grace Alliance? And if so, are there some differences or similarities with Fresh Hope?
Yes, there are. First of all, let me say, I know Joe Padilla. He's a friend. I know Matt Stanford, who created it, and he's a friend. And I love and care about both of them, but there are major differences.
Okay.
And one is that I would call Grace Alliance's material, I would call that a group. It's not a support group. It's a group that can be supportive, that's around material. In other words, lessons, because it's only X amount of weeks long. And they have lessons, great lessons on recovery, but it's not an ongoing group. And I am a believer in, so it's short-term intervention. And short-term intervention is good. It helps people initially, but long-term, probably not as much, because we adults learn different. You can't just tell us what we should do and we do it. I didn't recover that way. I had to recover as I could do it and want to do it and practice it, and I needed time. And so Fresh Hope is ongoing. It's just like AA. It's there. There's no break. There's no, you could come in at any time. For instance, Grace Alliance has a set course of, it's a course, it's instruction, and the group is supported. Now they keep separate, the loved ones are separated from those who have a diagnosis, et cetera, et cetera. I think they are planning on changing some of that. You could use any of our material and do the same thing with it, but we prefer that it's ongoing. If you take a break at Christmas time or you take a break over the summer, what if that's when people have their meltdown? What if that's when they need the group? And they've got to be able to come to that group any week that they're ready to go. You know, you can't say, well, it's great that you want help this week, but we still have 15 more weeks of this class, and you can't join it until the first session. So anyway, those are some major differences. As far as the approach to recovery, no, it's all the same.
Nice. And I have one last question.
Oh, if I could say one more thing about
Sure.
Grace Alliance's material. Their material is great. It's exceptional. And you could actually use their material in our groups.
Oh, nice.
Because the facilitators in our groups choose what they want to cover week by week. So they could actually, a facilitator could say, I like Grace Alliance's material and I want to use it. And for the next 17 weeks in our group, which will go past that, but people would be able to come in at any time that, you'd want to keep it that way.
Great. Last question we have here. Does Hope, Holding for Hope, or the original one, Fresh Hope, does it work with court interventions for individuals who are suffering with mental health?
Yes.
With judges?
Yeah. We have had numerous people throughout the years that end up doing exactly that they come because it was court ordered. They aren't Christians necessarily. And I had one guy that he came and he said, I just want you to know straight up that I'm not a Christian. I said, great, not a problem. Just know straight up that there's a lot of Christians here and they're going to talk about their faith, but we have people that are Jewish that attend. We have people that are, so what I have found with the court-ordered folks is they're always shocked that these Christians aren't so judgmental like they thought maybe we were. We tell our groups are what I call pan-Christian. You don't get into discussions about theology. You don't discuss the Bible. You're not a Bible study. You're not a discipling group. You're none of those things. So if somebody that is gay comes to your group and they're Christian and you happen to be meeting in an evangelical church, it is not your job to talk about those things, and that's not why people are there. And you just be supportive and loving each other and caring about each other.
That's very encouraging. So,
by the way, this question in regards to court orders, we actually locally do Fresh Hope in our county jail. Okay. So we have a group that meets in the jail, but we also have developed a course that we will be putting out, just like the Hope Coaching, that is a Fresh Hope approach to those who have been incarcerated, who have emotional issues and or mental health issues. I make a difference. By the way, everybody out there in attending this right now, everybody has emotional issues. I just want you all to know you're broken. I'm not alone. And part of that is the fact that, but people who have been incarcerated have had trauma, usually are stunted with emotional IQ and things like that. So we've been working at developing a curriculum, and that will be a curriculum thing that people could do in a jail, rotating every 18 weeks. Because in jails, people, they're not in for usually longer than months.
Okay. I have one more. They keep trickling in.
Good.
And thank you, folks, for doing that. So this next question, I think is kind of like the here and now. Does Fresh Hope does it have a custom program that's geared for children, especially now with COVID-19
Mm-hmm.
and everyone, being at home and kids now going to school from home? It's a really trying time. And man, if there's any type of hope that we can give the community, I think this is definitely the time.
Yes, I will tell you. It is my desire. We have now stuff for teens, but it is my desire to do something for children in the future, in the very near future. But when it comes to the COVID stuff and helping people with that, yes, we do have something available. Families could do it, small groups could use it. You could do it with your children. And it's called Processing Together. I wrote it right after the COVID thing hit, because I said we need to help people. There's research out there that says that for people who have been in a what do we call it, quarantined, if there were people that helped with the Ebola crisis and they were quarantined for no more than 10 days, but the trauma of that being quarantined showed up even 3 years later for some of them. And so what I did was I wrote this thing. It's called Processing Together. If you email me and just say, send me that, it's free. And it's a, I could probably show it to you. I could find it on my computer, but it's a 4-week or 4-session thing, helping people just process the trauma of being quarantined and talking about it and trying to moving forward through it so that the trauma has less residual aspects to it once we're out of quarantine. And we've had adult groups use it in churches. We've had somebody's doing it with a group of moms right now, where the moms are concerned about the safety of their kids as they go back to school.
Well, Pastor Brad, it looks like our questions have slowed down quite a bit.
Good.
And I show it's 12:33 in the afternoon. It looks like some folks might be ready for a little stand-up stretch. If you have any final words in regards to what you've mentioned, if I can have everyone out there who's listening, give me maybe a thumbs up or a thank you. Pastor Brad did a phenomenal job sharing, and I'm looking forward to looking for your book as well as your program. And we'll just wait for a quick second here. We're going to share one more time the CEU numbers. So if you want to write this one down, it is code number 33. And again, that is the ending code for today's session, 33. And then for some of you who probably missed it earlier, again, that code was 2626. We're going to keep the chat session open for a bit longer here. We did post the email if you have any questions concerning your CEUs. Brad, if you're seeing the chat box here, you're getting raving responses here.
Gosh, I'm going to run out of money to pay people off for this.
And so we have one more final question, it looks like, from Susan. She says, how do we find Processing Together?
Nice.
Yes, if you just email me and just say, I want that Processing Together. Let me just here. I have the link, I'm pretty sure, saved on my computer. And let me just get to that. And it's a landing page on our website, so I don't know what it's called. Okay, here we go. Yep, I'm gonna put it I will post it in the chat box. And if you just click on this link, it will take you to what you need to fill out, and then it will automatically email it to you. And but if you email me, and the best way to get a hold of me is pastorbrad@freshhope.us. I read my own emails. Sometimes I might be a little slow to answer, but I do get to them sooner or later.
The whole world knocking at your door, Brad.
No, not really. But I will tell you that the issue of hope, people talk about hope and it's so abstract. But to me, what I want to leave you guys understanding today is there's a very concrete way. There's an exceptionally concrete, simple way to give people hope, to lead them to that point where they have the opportunity to pivot and see a way forward. There really is a way to do it. Now, will everyone? No, because there are people who are stuck and they prefer to be stuck. But for people that really do want to move forward, or they don't want to live in that, there's a way to really help them, and it's very concrete. So I'm privileged that you all spent this time with me. Thank you so much. Gosh, I made it without my dog barking. That's a good thing.
Yes. Well, thank you so much, everyone. Thank you for Nowcast for putting this together. Brad, I think this went super well. If you have any cooler weather back up north, please send that to Texas. We would really do appreciate it. And maybe in the wintertime, we'll go and check you out up there with some of our snow gears.
Yeah, and I like this because nobody can tell that I put 25 pounds on during COVID. I have to wear a mask just to keep myself from eating at home.
Well, you look quite healthy, so that's the important thing.
All right. Well,
Great.
Thank you.
Yeah, and Lori, I'm going to pass this back to you. So if you want to give us some last instructions here, I'm sorry, that's Lori or
Terry.
Terry. My bad.
I think that we're good. We said the codes, and thank you so much, Pastor Brad. We really appreciate having you. And if anyone does have further questions, I believe they can email you at Pastor Brad at the email that we provided.
Freshhope.us. Yep. Pastor Brad at freshhope.us.
One last piece on this track for this afternoon. We're going to take a quick break now from 12:40 to 1 p.m. So go grab yourself a snack. We'll restart at 1 p.m. Central Time to 2:15. And on this track, the next subject is called "Am I Included?" Am I included? So we'll see you in a little bit. And Brad, take care of yourself and be safe.
Thank you.
Back at home. Bye-bye.
You bet. God bless.
See you.